Welcome to episode 3 of the Ride and Inspire Rawcast, where I combine neuroscience, mental training, psychology, and my experience as a full-time mountain bike skills instructor to give you hands-on tools on how to become a better mountain biker and hopefully also a better person. I'm Roxy and I'm super excited and grateful to welcome you. Why is this podcast called a Rawcast? That's because it's raw and uncut, and it's recorded on the go, out in the woods on my creativity walks. Today I'm in Germany, in the beautiful Fichtel Mountains, Fichtelgebirge in German, which is a very lush green hidden gem in Bavaria. So if you hear birds chirping, leaves rustling below my feet, or my breathing, that's because I'm literally taking you on a walk with me through these gorgeous, gorgeous, mossy granite formations and forest lands. So just imagine you're out here with me. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that causes a lot of tension among men and women especially, and especially couples I coach address me with questions about this topic. And that is fear on trails and why men and women react differently to dangers and to technical trail situations, but also to crashes. So very often when I coach heterosexual couples or homosexual couples with a strong polarity in the gender-specific roles, the, let's call it male part of the couple, poses the question, I wish my wife would just stop thinking about what could happen so much. It just slows her down. She then uses her brakes too much and she topples over in sections she could technically ride, or she freezes up on sections where actually all she needs to do is to just let it roll. And the female counterpart often asks me, I just need a remedy for my mind. I technically know what to do, but I just can't bring my body to do it. I want to release the brakes, but I just can't. So today, I'd like to address some of the elements causing this disparity on perceiving the very same trail situation differently, and also I'd like to present possible solutions. Before I do so, I'd like to add, of course, there are exceptions to these gender-specific roles, and it doesn't make you less male or less female if you don't react or think the way I've just presented. This is just my empirical experience, working with hundreds of riders yearly, so I wanted to share about this clear tendency I've observed over the last years. Of course, this doesn't mean that there are no exceptions, but I do believe that this info will help many couples and maybe also, hopefully also you. Okay, so why is there such a difference between how men, or let's say testosterone dominant beings, react more quote unquote bravely or more quote unquote daringly in the face of such trail situations, and why do men often ride more technical stuff earlier than women? Well, there are two major factors why this is the case. The first reason is more of an evolutionary nature, and the second is more of an anatomical reason. Let's look at the evolutionary reason first. If we look at men and women in an evolutionary or from an evolutionary perspective, then back in the days, when we were still cavemen and cavewomen, then we can see that males generally survived if they were good hunters, and women generally survived and were hence able to pass on their genes if they were good gatherers and nurturers. In other words, when a man met a tiger, he needed to fight, and when a woman met a tiger, she needed to hide or flee if possible. So if we transfer this evolutionarily conditioned behavior to how we react to perceived dangers on the trails, then a man will charge at the danger. So when he feels fear, he'll let go of the brakes, and a woman will move away from the danger when she feels fear. Men will fight, women will flee or freeze, because that's the response to fear of our brain. It's fight, flight, or freeze. Again, I'm not saying this is a 100% situation in all of the cases, but I have observed a strong gender-specific tendency over the years. So in a trail situation that causes fear, hence men will probably tend to let go of the brakes, hold on to the bike and ride it out. I've actually heard men say this a lot. If in doubt, ride it out. While women will either lock the brakes and or they will move away from the fear. So for example, rearward in the bike, or they will stiffen up or get off their bike and choose the safer option of walking the bike to nurture and save their family. This is natural, it's founded in our biology, and it is okay. The problem, however, occurs when one gender wants the other gender to act according to his or her rules. And this is where conflict is born. Generally, fear is a fundamental and a deeply wired reaction. You know, it evolved over the history of biology. It protects us against perceived threats. To protect us, our brain performs complex calculations within milliseconds. And it does this based on the aspects duration, path, and outcome. This means that faced with a dangerous situation, or a situation perceived as dangerous, and this is super subjective, your brain will start to calculate how long will it take me to get out of the situation, how will I get there, and how will this situation probably end. That's the duration, path, and outcome. While performing this duration, path, and outcome calculation, of course, it will check for the individual resources you have at your disposition. For example, how much strength do you have? How automatized are your skills? And whether you have a plan B if plan A should fail. And this is where reason 2, which I called the anatomical reason earlier on in this episode, comes into play. Reason 2, why women tend to react differently, or let's say more carefully to fear, is that men have more strength than women. So if something should go wrong, a crash will probably have higher consequences for us women than it will have for a man. Also, a man may still be able to hold on to his bike and ride it out, while a woman will probably not have the strength in the first place. So the calculation of duration, path, and outcome performed by a male brain will be quite different than the calculations performed by a female brain, based on the fact that the resources available to both are different. So finally, of course, I'd like to present a possible solution for this dilemma, and also a solution for how to deal with this discrepancy, let's call it more mindfully. Ultimately, I'd also like to share how you can have more fun out in the woods, even if this happens, and how both parties can learn from this situation. So firstly, understanding the root of your behavior and the root of the contradictory behavior usually helps to calm down both sides, because both start to understand that they're not right and the other person isn't wrong. So if you have this talk with someone, then do share this podcast with them. Secondly, knowing that a male or a testosterone-dominated person will probably react more daringly in the face of danger can help this person to be more mindful about it. Perhaps if you are this person, you may want to feel into your emotions and ask yourself whether your daring behavior may mean that you are fearful and that you're riding beyond your current skill level, if you're simply letting go of the brakes and riding it out, rather than, for example, controlling your speed and searching for control. If this is the case, then I recommend to follow the advice of regress to progress. So refine your riding foundation and go slow to go fast in the long run by learning skills such as the track stand and advanced braking maneuvers, as well as safe dismounting techniques to ride in control with finesse. Check the show notes if you would like to work with me on these topics. As the female counterpart, I invite you to work on 2 things. 1, accept your quote-unquote weakness fully, because often weaknesses are actually strengths. Often, we women, we tend to compare ourselves too much to men. And then we judge our more careful approach as weakness, or we blame ourselves for our lack of quote-unquote bravery. Yes, women and men are different, but exactly that's the beauty. Our weakness often keeps us safe. And over the years of coaching thousands of riders, I can tell you I've seen way fewer women crash seriously than I've seen men crash seriously. Secondly, I invite you to work on your skills to gain control, but also to increase your options. If you have a plan B, for example, because you feel confident to take a different line than the one shown, or for example, you know how to dismount safely in technical terrain, then you will be much more confident to ride into sections where your brain's calculations based on duration, path, and outcome are still a big question mark, because you know you can safely try out new but still unridden lines. I'll link a video about how to dismount safely in the show notes below, and I'll also link my free track stand course because it really makes a difference. So that's it from me for today. I truly hope I was able to help you with this episode. If you would like to say thank you to my ads-free podcast, then buy me a coffee or become a patron. Both links are linked in the show notes below. Do give me a rating on wherever you're listening to this podcast. Sign up for my info letter to be inspired, and have a lovely evening, morning, or day whenever you're listening to this and wherever you may be on the world. I'm now off home to prepare my mental training camp starting tomorrow, and to make my husband some tea because he is in bed with the flu. Sending much love to you. Goodbye.